A good Voch Rabbi Sai. Neither is Shmasi Miros Rus Mordechai. Zog the Eli Mishnah, we're holding Daf Ayin Hey Amud Beis. Osham shenis arev b'shlamim. Okay, person brings there's two korbanos here. An asham is a carbon that you bring typically when you do some sort of avera. The asham etzaira, sham gzela, shivcha charufa. Difference like not for the best stuff. Shenis arev b'shlamim. Shlamim is more like a taida. So what is the difference between an asham and a shlamim? One difference is where we shecht it. An asham is kachik kachim. So the category of kachik kachim, you can only shecht it where? In the north. Shlamim, you can shecht anywhere in the Azara. Where do you eat an asham? Only in the Beis HaMikdash. A shlamim, you can eat it anywhere in Yerushalayim. And finally, how many days can you eat kachik kachim, asham? 1 day and a night. But shlamim you can eat for 2 days. So now you have these two korbanos. You see the difference between them? There's 3 differences. A asham is a zachar, a shlamim, is eaten by a zachar, eaten by a kohen. A zachar. Shlamim, anybody can eat it. A asham, you only eat in the Azara, where shlamim you eat in Yerushalayim. And the asham, yom v'layla, shlamim is shnei yom v'layla. So now you have these two korbanos to get mixed up. What do? So now what? The tzafim part. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're right. Good point. We got to add that. I said it though. Okay, you see I'm not cheating off this chart. So they got mixed up a little bit. So it shouldn't be a big deal because you could shech the shlamim in the tzafim. There's no isser to shech. There's a problem to shech the asham in the south part of the Azara. There's no isser to shech the shlamim in the north part. So shech both of these animals in the north, and just in case one of them is a asham, you shech it in the north. What about eating it? So we eat it only in the Azara, not in Yerushalayim. Is there a problem with that? Is there a problem with that? Saying that this carbon can only eat in the Azara, not in Yerushalayim. Okay, let me ask you another question. Is there a problem saying that both korbanos can only eat for 1 day and a night, and you be quiet? Versus saying, okay, one of them you could eat for 2 days and a night, will be machmer. No, only eat it for 1 day and 1 night. Is there a problem with that? Yeah. Okay, so there is a concept called Emevim Kachim Lebeis Apsul. Okay, new thing, we didn't really discuss it. And that is, you're not allowed to take a carbon that you could eat for 2 days and say, oh, you can only eat it for 1 day. Because like that, what if you go over the 1 day? You would have to burn it. And you're going to end up burning a carbon that's perfectly good, being machmer, and you're going to destroy it without eating it. That's asr. There's another isser, which is the same isser. So according to you, could I say that I'm not going to eat the shlamim in Yerushalayim? I'm only going to eat it in the Beis HaMikdash. Is that a problem?
Could be, because maybe you won't manage to get to the Beis HaMikdash.
You won't what?
Not manage to get into the Beis HaMikdash that time, and then you need to throw the korban to the.
So the answer is, I say you're like going a little bit over. The answer is yes, it's a problem. You're limiting where you can eat this carbon. You could have eaten it all over Yerushalayim. Now you're limiting it to the Beis HaMikdash. That's also included in this isser of Ein Mevim Kachim. You cannot limit karbanas to if you're allowed to eat them for 2 days, you can't limit it to 1 day. You're allowed to eat in the whole Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to limit it to the Beis HaMikdash. So what do you do? Over here, what do? You have 2 karbanas that got mixed up. First of all, the Zrikas Hadam is the same thing on both of them. You do, I think it's 4 corners. It's the same Zrika. So the Zrika is not an issue. The problem is Shchita is not a problem. You're allowed to shecht a shlamim in the tzafah, and you're allowed to shecht asham in the tzafah. So just do it like that. However, when it comes to the amount of time that you're allowed to eat it, you have to be machmer. You can't eat it for 2 days because you don't know which one is the asham, which one is the shlamim. So both of them you're only going to eat for 1 day and a night. That's problematic because there's an isser to limit the amount of time this korban is allowed to be eaten. Nisar v'chatichos v'chatichos. This case is worse because now these are not alive. These are pieces of meat, steaks got mixed up. One is a shlamim steak, one is a nasham. Kachi kedashim, kachim kalam. You have asham and shlamim mixed up. Hanechal v'yemechad v'nechal v'shnei yomim v'layla. So it's one of them you're allowed to eat only for one day, and one of them you're allowed to eat for 2 days. Over here we don't see a machlokes. Everybody agrees that you should be makbid and only eat it for 1 day, not for 2 days. So what's the difference really? We're going to see, because when they're alive, there's a way out of it. There's another eitzah that you can do. You don't have to shecht it and be machmer and only eat it for 1 day. But once they're dead, there's nothing you can do. You can't send them to Kevis land and do yiru achi yistavu. You have meat that's already shechted, so what are you going to do? So the best option is just to go ahead and eat it for 1 day. Tani Tani Kamed the Rav. Shvi'is and Leichim Damet Truma. The way Shemitah works, there's something called Zman Bir. Every fruit has another time that you have to get destroyed. You punch it after you have to destroy it or make it hefker. When he notices that there's no figs left on the tree, then all the figs that you have at home, you got to get rid of, you got to destroy. It's hefker. Or according to the Rambam, you burn it. So that's Zman Bir. So in other words, anything Shemitah, figs are like the most problematic because they grow at different times, but apples, whatever it is, any fruit has a Zman Bir. Like you have wheat. Wheat is when the deer stop eating, whatever it is, each thing. So there's a limit to how long you could own fruit. So a guy sells his fruit, his Shemitah fruit. Let's say it didn't grow on Shemitah, he's before. He sells the fruit, and now he has money. And he buys, with the money, he buys Truma. Truma is a kayan, you could eat Truma. But the thing, Truma doesn't have an expiration date. Truma lasts forever. But if you buy with Shemitah money, the money is like the fruit. So whenever the figs go hefker, so does the money. And when you buy Truma with the Shemitah fruit, the Shemitah money, you buy Truma with Shemitah money, it has an expiration date. Typical Truma doesn't have an expiration date. Now you just put an expiration date on the Truma. Whenever this guy takes his figs out and makes it hefker, you're going to have to get the apples that you bought with the Shemitah money, you're also going to have to get rid of. And what is that called? That's called a mevim kachim lebeis hapsul. You're limiting the Truma now. You're not allowed to limit Truma. Ein loikim b'domeh Truma. You're not allowed to purchase Truma with Shemitah money. Oh, the loik Reb Shimon. This doesn't go according to Reb Shimon by Yochai. Reb Shimon, he holds that you could limit. How do I see that he could limit? Because in our Mishnah it says that if two korbanos get mixed up, an asham that you can only eat for 1 day and a shlamim you can eat for 2 days, you pretend that they're both asham, they eat it for 1 day and you limit it. Reb Shimon says it's not a problem. Amar lo afilu tamru Reb Shimon hanamili the Aved, it's like in 2 words brought down. Well, the kids are the Aved. The point is, Reb Shimon doesn't say you should go ahead and purchase something and make it lechatchila limit its time. He says, if you have a situation with 2 korbanos are mixed up, then you treat it and you only eat it for 1 day. That's b'di'evet. He never said go purchase truma with shemitah money. That's lechatchila. You don't do that. That's the Gemara lechatchila. So now we're going to go through a series of examples where you see that Reb Shimon allows you to limit Dairaisas, the time of a certain Dairaisa, and it doesn't care so much about Mevim Kachim Lebeis Hapsul. Karbonis that you're allowed to eat. So the Kohanim, they could eat it. You know, they used to make a party over there in the Beis Hamikdash. They shech a lot of animals. They would eat steaks and la'achlan sluyin. You could broil. You could roast shlukim umevushalin. So it's like a slow cook. Shlukim, that when I like this. I don't know about you guys. The overnight meat, like you put the ribs into the crock pot, for slow cook, shmak, sous vide, it falls apart. And what do? We're almost there. You're allowed to put in ingredients. You're allowed to put in different spices that are chulin, obviously. Well, even chulin, because you're dealing here with kachim. And tavli truma, you're allowed to use spices of truma. Now, what's the problem? What's the problem with truma, spices? Because now you're dealing with kachim. Kachim you can only eat for a day, maximum for 2 days. And you're using spices that are truma. How long can you eat truma? Forever. Now you can only eat the garlic powder for 2 days. You ruin it. That's Eimavim kachim lebeis apsul. Do Rabbi Shmuel?
To change the gears to Rabbi Shimon.
Reb Shimon would be much better because it would be a question on Reb Shimon. You see, Reb Shimon Furish holds, makes sense to change it out from Reb Shmuel to Reb Shimon because we're asking a question. We're proving that Reb Shimon holds that it's not a problem. You could use spices, and the Gemara says a second later that it's Reb Shimon, that you're using spices even though you're limiting the eating time. Omar lei. Now let me ask you something. What halacha does garlic powder have when it comes to truma? Is it the deraisa or the rabbanon? The garlic powder that you separated from your thing and you put on the side. What is it? The rabbanon, the deraisa, that truma. The rabbanon. Why the rabbanon? Dagan, tirash, v'yitzar. There's only 3 items that are the deraisa: wheat, grapes, and olives. The oil, olive oil. All grains. Omerlei, hanach l'trumas tvalim d'Rabbanon. What are you worried about? Over there, it's okay. So you took a d'Rabbanon truma, and now you limited it to 2 days instead of forever. It's not the end of the world. It's only d'Rabbanon. Eisvei, another question. Ein loikim truma. Trying to prove that Reb Shimon holds that it's not a problem, even in the Raisa, not a problem to limit. Eisvei, ein loikim truma b'kesav meiser. What's kesav meiser for the 1,000th time this year? This is one of the things that no old timers and them, why they don't want to hear this anymore. Truma, a person has produce, and he has to give truma and then meiser, and then he gives 10% himself, which he only could eat in Yerushalayim, and if it's too heavy for him, so then he trades it out into cash, and he brings the cash to Yerushalayim, and in Yerushalayim he buys any food he wants, almost, and he decides with the money to buy truma. Ein loikim truma because of You're not permitted to buy truma if you're a kohen with that money. Why? With the meiser sheni money, because you're limiting the amount of the time that you're allowed to eat.
Where you're letting.
Oh, right, correct. The makom. So over here you see mefurish. It's also oinen can't eat it, but the place where you could eat it, meiser sheni could only eat Yerushalayim. Truma could eat it everywhere else. Reb Shimon matir, and Reb Shimon says it's not a problem. So here you see that's a kasha. You see that Reb Shimon holds even when it comes to the deraisas, limiting is not an issue. Ishtiklai, so Rava didn't answer. He also like Rav Yosef. So now Abaya, throughout Shas, Abaya always talks to Rav Yosef, even when he got sick and he forgot a lot of his learning, he helped him out. Omerlei, Amayle Yosef Eimaha. I don't understand. Abaya, why don't you ask Rava from a different place? It says, you shouldn't cook vegetables of Shemitah in oil of Truma. Why? By you putting in a Shemitah vegetable in Truma oil, so you're causing the oil you're limiting the oil. You can only eat it for the time for Shemitah. Whenever there's man beers with the monkeys and all that stuff, there's a certain limit when you do Shemitah. You mix Shemitah with Truma. Reb Shimon matter. Oh, it says Mefurish. Reb Shimon doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about limiting their rices. I asked Rav a question from the spices before. He answered me, that's talking about the Rabbanon. Over here you could also say, and one pshat is, that the oil is the Rabbanon. That the oil is not, you think that the oil is olive oil? No, it's not olive oil, it's canola oil. It's the Rabbanon. If that's the case, here. So in the Mishnah it says that the vegetable was Shemitah, the oil was Truma, and that seems like a Doiraisa. If the Shemen Truma is olive oil, that's Doiraisa. And then we said, no, maybe he'll say it's, and I'll prove to you that it's like this. If you are right, that we're talking about the Rabbanan, don't worry about it, this is going to be over in a minute, then it should have said in the Mishnah this case. If you're going to take the case in the right and tell me that we're not talking about oil that's olive oil, and it's the Rabbanan oil, then you should have said a case that's really the Rabbanan, where the vegetable is Truma, and that's the Rabbanan, and the oil is Shemitah. That would be a real case of the Rabbanan. Obviously, you're wrong about it. Says Abaye the matter of Shimon. I asked Rava before about the two karbanos that got mixed up in the Mishnah, and Reb Shimon holds that you're allowed to limit the amount of time that you eat them. V'amar li, and Rava explained the Yorev. Oh, you can't bring a raya from our Mishnah that Reb Shimon holds that you're allowed to limit foods instead of eating them for 2 days, 1 day, because in our Mishnah it already got mixed up, so you have no choice. So he says, hachanami de'arev. So in this case with the oil and the potato chips, and it's also a case where the vegetable and the oil got mixed up already, and there's nothing to do. Says Gemara, de'arev ma'tamai de'rabbanan. So then why in the world would Rabbanan say it's aser? There's nothing you can do about it. Why would Rabbanan ask for that? So perhaps they said like the Ashim and Shlamim in our Mishnah, they got mixed up. Rabbanan said, don't do anything about it. Don't eat it. You should do something else. So the Gemara says, what's the connection? Midami, Hasim is like the Beria. The reason why Rabbanan said if Ashim and Shlamim get mixed up, don't do anything, because they have a way out of it in another way. Send it to Kevis land. Let them befall a mom and then redeem it. Let's say the Beria. But over here, but in our case, there's no Eitzah. Just like the Sefer of the Mishnah, where two steaks got mixed up, and there's no way out of it. Even Rabbanan admit that you're allowed to eat it only for 1 day and limit it, because when you have no way out, there's no takara, then everybody agrees that you do the best you can do. The kivin does the gana, okay. Mascular Ravina, midami. So he has a question, a simple question. When you have two pieces of meat mixed up, there's no way out of it at all. Only to say, let's treat it like a asham and eat it for 1 day instead of 2 days. How is it the kind of beschita? But when you have a potato in oil, you could squeeze out the oil. Says Rav Yosef, no. Rav Yosef, what are you going to do? You're going to put it in a press and squeeze it. Then you're ruining the vegetable. And the vegetable is a shemitah vegetable, you have to treat it properly. You're not going to squeeze it in a press. You're going to squeeze it a little bit with your hand. So if it really matters, then you left some oil in the potato. So in Kitzur, there's no Eitzah. Eisvei. So Abaye asks Rava, Reb Shimon Oimer, L'machros maybe Hashamay v'lugo imoy v'oimer. Oh, so this is Geshmakas Sugya, Rabbi saying. The Mitzvah is a probably the most complicated procedure in the Torah. What you do, a person, well, maybe one of the most, maybe it is. A person gets a saras, he gets an affliction on a skin, let's say. He goes to the Kayan, any Kayan, and the Kayan says, first he puts him in a house, he says, come back in a week, that's a musgar. Come back in a week, he decides, yes, it is, he makes him a mukhlat. And then he has to go through the procedure of, he has to go away, 7 days. The first day, he comes in, he has to bring 2 birds, he has to wash his clothes, he has to shave his entire body with a razor, and then he has to go to the mikvah. Then he waits 7 days, and then, forget the first 7 days that I said, then he goes to then it's the seventh day, another time he has to shave, another time he has to wash his clothes, and he goes to the mikvah again. The 8th day, he has to bring korbanos. Asham chata soila. Okay, that's what it is. Now, this guy comes, he got mixed up. He doesn't know if the Kohen said he's a muzgar or a mukhlat, meaning he's not sure if he's 100% a mitzvah or not. So what does he do? He brings an asham and a whole lug of shemen, a big amount of oil. And now he has a suffix. He doesn't know, am I a mitzvah or not a mitzvah? So what should he do? So he brings it on a doubt. He says, if I'm a mitzvah, boom, it's going to work for the mitzvah. If not, I'm bringing a gift to Hashem. So the Gemara is just going to go through how it works exactly. Whole bottom goes like this. If I'm a Mitzayra, good. So I'm bringing a carbon of a Mitzayra. I'm bringing my carbon asham, and this is the oil that goes with it. What a surprise! Geschmack, tiny little almond. You know what? I'm bringing a gift to Hashem, a shlomim as in a dava. Oh, now this asham that could be a shlomim. I'm going to shecht it in the north. That's not a problem for a shlomim or an asham. And I have to put the oil on his fingers, like I'll treat him like a mitzayra, and I'm going to make him do smicha. Which one of the two does smicha? A shlomim or a asham? Shlomim. And I do nisachim. Which one of the two you do nisachim? Both. Really shouldn't be in here, says Taisus. And I lift it up and I go like this. Which one of the two does that? Shlomim. But I have to do everything as if it's the other one. I have to do the chumras of each one. Here's the problem, Rabbi Isai. If it was a shlomim, how long can you eat it? 2 days. And over here, you're treating it like a asham, you can only eat it 1 day. What's the problem? Emivim, kochim, lebeis, hapsul. No. So you see, the Reb Shimon holds that you can limit, even in their Raisa. Says the Gemara, I'm trying to help this guy. I'm trying to fix him. So in order to fix the guy from his tzaras and help him out, I allow you to limit this carbon to 1 day. Basically, we have a problem. Is this guy a matzayra, or is he just bringing a gift? What do you do with the oil? The oil is problematic. We just saw what you do with the animal. You treat the animal as if it's a asham and a shlamim. You lean on it as if it's a shlamim. You do this, you eat it for 1 day as if it's a asham. Okay, but what about the oil? The oil is problematic. Why is the oil problematic? Because you're not allowed to bring a bottle of oil into the Beis HaMikdash. If it has no kedusha, you're not allowed to bring it in there. So says the Gemara, why is it not chulun ba'azara? Says the Gemara, it's not a problem. Like you said about the animal. I'm giving it as a gift to Hashem. Put it on the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, great. If the oil is as a gift, you have to do kmitza to the oil. Now, what do you do kmitza? How do you do kmitza, Rabbi Isai? You put your hand in like this, and you go. So how you do that? You do this to the oil? Says Taisus, yes. According to Taisus, stick your hand. I'm like concerned about how do you wipe it off. Don't worry, it's the Beis HaMikdash. Blood, oil, it's not a problem. Stick your hand in there. Says Gemara, the mikametz. You're right, he does kmitza. Just in case, on the what? If it's part of the mitzayra, you don't have to do kmitza. But if it's in a dava, you have to do kmitza. What happens to the rest? The koyanim eat it. But they can't eat it until you do kmitza. Says the Gemara, v'dilma mitzayru boy matan sheva. But on the tzad that he's a real mitzayra, you have to sprinkle the oil 7 times. Klape the kapayras, the paroichas. You see that in the video also. So the Gemara here, the Yav, he in fact does 7 sprinkles. Says the Gemara, very good. I thought that you're going to say that. The problem is v'chazerlei. The problem is that you don't have enough oil because he did a kmitza. You went like this, he took out the oil, you don't have enough oil. The Maisi poured him in Malalei. He brought another bottle of oil, you see that in the video also, and he fills it up. This nan chosar legach yotzak yemaleno. In fact, what time is it? 28, okay. If you're missing a little bit of oil, until you did what you have to do with the oil, you fill it up. As the Gemara Baboy Aktara, after you do the kmitza to the oil, you have to put on the mizbeach. The makterle, yes, he puts it on the mizbeach. Says Gemara, when? Eimas. If it's in a dava, and you did 7 zrikos for the mitzayra, havelu shirayim shechosru. Now you have a problem. You have shirayim. The leftover oil is missing from the original amount. If you have a kmitza and somebody grabbed some of the flour of your mincha, in this case he grabbed some of the oil, you cannot put this oil on the Mizbeach. Now somebody here took oil and sprayed it on the floor. So how are you going to take this thing and put it on the Mizbeach? So this is interesting to show you this real quickly. This is the pasuk. The Gemara darshans that the word mimenu is extra over here. It already says we're talking about the leaven, sa'ir, and dvash. We have to remember this pasuk for tomorrow. You're not allowed to put any bread or dvash, honey, meaning fruit and honey of dates. You're not allowed to put on the mizbeach. So what's this mimenu? So Gemara darshans like this. Take a look. What just happened? Boom. The leisak tiru actually goes for the first part of the pasuk that you're not allowed to put on the mizbeach, dvash, and the leaven, but also leisak tiru mimenu yishel Hashem. That if you ever put a little piece, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow as well, if you ever put a little piece of carbon on the mizbeach, you can't continue putting more of it on. Mimenu. Leisaktiru, when shouldn't you put on the mizbeach? When you have a mimenu, part of it is already in the mizbeach, Yishal Hashem. So over here, if you put this kmitza on top of the mizbeach, you have another problem. What does baltaktiru in this Gemara mean? You won't be able to put the 7 hazais on the floor. You won't be able to sprinkle blood on the floor, oil on the floor. It's a type of aktara. And you can't do that aktara if you already put the kmitza on the mizbeach beforehand. Once you put a kmitza, you lock everything out, it says. This, says the Gemara, and this, we're going to have this idea also in the beginning of the sugya. Tomorrow there's a Mishnah right away, but just remember this idea. I could put something on the mizbeach, thinking in my mind that it's wood. It's wood. Yeah? Meaning it's water, says Rashi. The last line in Rashi says, Hare halakidwe mayim. That's why in the video you see that he pours water. As we're going to learn tomorrow that what? You shouldn't put these the sar and the dvash for a good fragrance, for a reich and chayach baruch hu. If you think to yourself that what you're putting on is wood, hold on, so let's do this video again. If you think to yourself that you're putting wood, you're not doing it for a carbon, that's okay. So you're going to make a t'nai. If it's supposed to be my nedava, perfect. If I'm a mitzayra and it's not supposed to go on the mizbeach, so I'm putting it on as wood. So now take a look, see if you recognize the things in this video.
סליחה, אתה מיצורה? כי אני רואה שיש לך שמן וגם כבש.
האמת, אני ספק.
אתה ספק? מה הכוון הספק?
מצורע, ואולי לא, מצורע, ואולי לא. אם אני מצורע צריך חוק שמן לעזה, 7 הזעות. טיפה על האוזן, על האגודל ועל הבורן ימין, ומה שנשאר לאכילה לכהנים הכהנים, אבל אולי לא, וזה רק שמן נדבה, הכהן קומץ ומגדיר, ומה שנשאר לאכילה לכהנים הכהנים, אז מה אני עושה? מה אני עושה?
אחי, יש פתרון מדהים.
1, אתה מביא לוג שמן, מקדיש אותו או למצורע, ואולי לא, או לנדבה. 2, הכהן קומץ ומקטיר את הקומץ, אבל זה חסר. 3, אתה מוסיף שמן ועושה תנאי, אם אני מצורע זה קדוש, ואולי לא, ואם לא, אין אף קדושת הגוף. 4, הכהן מזה מהשמן, אם אתה מצורע זו עזה, ואולי לא, אם לא, זה רק מים. 5, את השמן הנוסף פודים. 6, ומה שנשאר לאכילה לכהנים הכהנים. מצורע ואולי לא.
Rabbi Isai, have a good Voch.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.